exit their timeshares legally and ethically through a simple, proven process. First, you receive a complimentary case review to confirm eligibility. Next, an exit strategy is customized to your specific situation. Finally, the Lone Star Transfer team implements your plan, guarantees results. I have partnered with the owners for more than 5 years, personally witnessed the outcomes delivered to our listeners. No surprise fees, no unused vacations, no stress, peace of mind. So please visit LoneStarTransfer.com or call 855-551-7066.
Ever feel like just a number in a waiting room? Hi, I'm Shannon Tribune, Director of Operations with Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Navigating the medical system can be a maze of stress. I'm your personal guide at Body of Health. I handle the messy parts of medical care, the logistics and complex coordination, both in and outside our walls, so you and Dr. Tobler, that's my dad, can focus on what matters most, your health. At Body of Health, you're not just a patient, you're part of the family, because that's healthcare the way it ought to be. To learn more, schedule a discovery call at bodyofhealth.com.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf.
800-240-4586. 800-240-4586. That's 800-240-4586.
Now, the O'Reilly Update brings you something you might not know. 117 years ago today, a Native American warrior who resisted American expansion died of pneumonia. His name will go down in history as one of the greatest leaders of all time. Here is the story of Geronimo. The young Apache was given the birth name Goyakla, meaning he who yawns. As a teenager, his tribe of 8,000 Indians were fighting Mexicans to the south, Americans to the north, Comanches and Navajos to the east and west. Nonstop violence. The boy soon earned the name Geronimo. Legend states the moniker began when terrified Mexican soldiers screamed for St. Jerome when facing the Apache in battle. Personal tragedy shaped Geronimo's lifelong hatred for non-natives. While away on a trading expedition, foreign soldiers attacked his family, killing his mother, wife, and their 3 children. Seeking revenge, Geronimo launched vicious campaigns against Mexican and American settlers. In 1874, the U.S. government ordered the Apaches to move from their land in Arizona to an Indian reservation. Geronimo refused. Over the next decade, he battled federal troops and launched raids on white settlements. September 1886, the Apache leader and his band of 200 fighters surrendered to the American Army. The Indian Wars of the Southwest were essentially over. Geronimo was then dispatched first to Florida, then Alabama, finally Oklahoma. There, he converted to Christianity, spent his final years as a farmer. He died on February 17th, 1909, at the age of 79. And here's something else you might not know. Today, Geronimo is synonymous with bravery on the battlefield. During World War II, American parachutists yelled the name when jumping out of planes. In May 2011, Geronimo was a military code for the capture or death of Osama bin Laden. For more amazing tales about the exploits of Geronimo, Sitting Bull, and other Indian warriors, please check out my best-selling book, Killing Crazy Horse. Back after this. Most people do not want a lecture when they are ill. They want medication fast. But too often, the system makes it harder than it should be. Appointments take weeks. Prescriptions get denied. Your insurance gets in the way. That's why more Americans are switching to all-family pharmacy. If you already know what medication works for you, all-family pharmacy makes it easy to get it. You order online, licensed doctor reviews a request, and your medication is delivered directly to your own door. They carry everyday prescription medications, antibiotics, ivermectin, NAD+, others you will not always find at big chain pharmacies. So choose freedom. Choose the right pharmacy. Choose All Family Pharmacy. Please go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use my code BILL10. Save 10% on your next order. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
News, analysis, opinion. News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Indirect talks between the U.S. and Iran concluded after some 3 hours today, mediated by Oman. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
The U.S. and Iran held their second round of talks about Iran's nuclear program in Geneva. As Iran said, it'll close the Strait of Hormuz for several hours. That's for live-fire military exercises as the U.S. ramps up its military forces in the region. This is the first time that Iran has closed parts of the strait, an essential international waterway, since the U.S. began threatening Iran with military action. Iran previously held a live-fire drill in the Strait of Hormuz several weeks ago, but it didn't announce closures. I'm Haya Panjwani.
China is protesting the U.S. proposal to sending arms to the Philippines. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
The United States plans to deploy more high-tech missile systems to the Philippines as part of a joint security plan this year between the two longtime allies to help deter China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea. U.S. and Philippine officials held annual talks Monday in Manila on broadening security, economic engagements, and boosting collaboration with regional security allies. In 2024, the U.S. installed a mid-range missile system in the northern Philippines called the Typhoon and an anti-ship missile launcher last year. China says the U.S. systems are a threat to regional stability and demanded that they be removed. The Philippines has rejected that demand. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up by 32 points. The Nasdaq rose by 31. The S&P 500 advanced 7. Oil down 64 cents to $62.25 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
Listen carefully. Silver prices have experienced a historic surge, breaking above the $100 per ounce threshold for the first time, and industry experts predict silver could climb even higher. It's not too late for you to benefit from the surge in silver. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get our free gold and silver investment guide. Plus, you'll also receive a free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Debt is rising, currencies are under pressure, and investors are looking for real assets, not paper promises. That's why so many Americans are turning to physical gold and silver with Advantage Gold. Historically, when silver starts moving, it can move fast and aggressively. This isn't about guessing tops or bottoms. It's about understanding risk and positioning before momentum accelerates. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 and find out how you can get a tax and penalty-free rollover for a portion of your retirement funds for 2026. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Skies are overcast today. It's a little breezy, but the temperatures will be mild, up into the low to mid 60s this afternoon for the high with that breeze. Overnight lows in the 50s tonight, 73 and sunny tomorrow. Nice day, a breezy day. The record high is 74, and we're going to get very close, if not tie it. Then on Thursday, we have a chance for a few storms. The high 72 degrees, still breezy, and we could see some strong storms in the afternoon. In the KMOV Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Looking for an underwater adventure or a scaly new friend? Dive into Tropical World Pets on Watson Road. For 32 years, this family-owned wonderland has been St. Louis's go-to destination for all things aquatic and reptilian. With over 7,000 square feet of aquariums, we're home to the area's largest selection of freshwater fish, including rare cichlids you won't find anywhere else. But that's not all. We've got tarantulas, snakes, and lizards galore. Tropical World Pets, 314-849-4020, or visit twpstl.com.
The Vic Morcelli Show.
Very active, very fun chat box. Cinderfer.
Hi, Cinderfer.
Hey, how you doing? She says, yo, Vic, baby. Verbatim, yo, Vic, baby. With an exclamation point. How else are you supposed to read that? I was driving, had to pull over to comment. I was going to say how sexy the beard is, but I'm afraid of your wife.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I would be.
Vic Morcelli, live and local, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now. They just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Legendary civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, dying at the age of 84.
I'm human. I am God's child.
His life changing when King was gunned down in Memphis. Jackson, literally, there by his side.
And when we turned, all we could see was police coming. Police were coming from the direction of the shot.
Jackson made Chicago his base of operation, starting what became the Rainbow Push Coalition, urging companies and politicians to improve opportunities for minorities. And he had his own political ambitions, launching a bid for president in 1984. The campaign was derailed when Jackson admitted using an anti-Semitic slur in a private conversation.
406, and welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show. It's the Tuesday edition, February 17th. It's great to be with you as always. And as you hear in that clip we just came in with, the Reverend, as the great late Rush Limbaugh used to say, the Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away today at age 84. Whatever you thought of him, he did leave a legacy. He did make a name for himself. We'll get more about that. We'll talk more about that as the show goes on. I have a few thoughts, of course. But it's Tuesday, and you know what that means. That means that my partner, Speaker Tim Jones, is in the Capitol at the Swamp. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Chris, here at the Jeff City Bureau. I was able to get the sign up.
I see that
for the show. News Talk STL live in Jefferson City, as we try to be every week during the session. I'm here in Studio Schroer, Senator Nick Schroer's office. The Senate is in session as we speak. And Chris, Jesse Jackson, boy, he sure could give a speech, don't we? One of my earliest political memories was watching him, listening to him at one of the Democratic National Conventions back in the 80s. And whatever you, like you said, whatever you thought about his politics, he sure could whip up a crowd and get things going.
Yes, he was a very eloquent, what's the word I'm looking for, Joey? Eloquent orator. Right? And he had a tortured political past, a political career. Of course, he started off as an aide to Reverend Martin Luther King, and early in his career, he started some controversy. After the Reverend King was assassinated, he wore a turtleneck that he claimed had the blood of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s blood on it. He wore that for several days after the assassination. A lot of people that were connected with Reverend King said that that was not the actual blood of Reverend Martin Luther King. They said that Reverend Jackson was not close to him at that time when he was shot. So his political career started off with some controversy there. I had a lot of respect for Jesse Jackson growing up. He was a leader. He was a very great orator. But my opinion changed about him in the 80s and 90s. One thing about Jesse Jackson in the late 60s and early 70s, Tim, he was a very, very strong pro-life advocate. When the abortion and Planned Parenthood and all that started, he was very much against that. He said that abortion clinics were placed in our neighborhoods for genocide. I have many, many quotes I put out over the years of Jesse Jackson talking about how horrific abortion is, that it's murdering, it's killing babies. And then when he ran for president in 1984, he completely did a 180. He started getting money for his presidential campaign from Planned Parenthood. And that, to me, I think was the beginning of the end or the fall of for me of having any respect for him. He is known for his Rainbow Push organization in Chicago, where he was trying to create opportunities for African Americans. But if you look closely at the record, some of the boycotts that he did against Anheuser-Busch, that he did against Coca-Cola and Pepsi to try to get more black distributors for those businesses. What ended up happening, Tim, was his brother and other wealthy people that were closely attached to him, they got those beer distributorships. They got those Coca-Cola and Pepsi distributorships. But none of that effort seems to filter down to the average African American. So that's one of the things, a couple of things that I was not a fan of Jesse Jackson about. And, of course, his successor is Reverend Al Sharpton, the man who has no church, but has succeeded him as, quote, unquote, the leader of black people.
Chris, I was in New York City right in the middle of one of the biggest hoaxes that Al Sharpton and Jackson were involved in. That was the Tawana Brawley rape hoax.
Yeah.
It occurred in 87. I showed up in New York City in the fall of 89 as that was all coming to a head. And it was a pretty tenuous time to be in New York during that time. We were all concerned about whether or not any violence was going to break out or not. It then came to light that the allegations were determined to be a complete hoax. And just like that, the whole thing went away. It was amazing. And as you were recounting the Democratic Party of yore, my Chris, how times have changed. We've focused heavily on their massive 180 that they've done on illegal immigration. And you just pointed out something that we tend to forget. There were plenty of Democrats back in the day that were pro-life as well. The party has become one without purpose, right? Their purpose nowadays seems to be wherever they can get their political power from. They actually used to stand for something. They used to stand for workers' rights. They used to stand for unborn children. They used to stand against illegal immigration. Now they stand apparently for just whatever keeps them in power.
Well, you know what they say in politics, Tim? Follow the money. There's been other notable black reverends that have become pro-choice. One of them that I've mentioned here on the show many times is the Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver, who is the congressman from the 5th District. He was a very, very pro-life advocate. At one time, Reverend Cleaver was on the board of Missouri Right to Life. I have the letterhead that shows his name on the Missouri Right to Life letterhead. So a lot of these folks have shifted positions because that's where the Democratic Party has shifted towards a pro-death, pro-infanticide party. And, of course, as we've talked about many, many times when it comes to the transgender movement and with abortion, there is a great deal of money that is involved with that. And you can point to Jesse Jackson's 180. As I said, when he ran for president in 1984, he received Planned Parenthood's blood money. And he became a very, very strong advocate for pro-choice. And like a lot of Democrats always say, look, they abhor abortion personally, but they don't feel it's their responsibility to tell others how to live your life. But I think that when you are a reverend speaking in the name of God, I think you have that right. I think you have that responsibility to speak out for those that can't speak for themselves. And speaking of other Democrats who were pro life at one time, Congressman Deb Gephardt longtime congressman here in St. Louis. He was very, very pro-life, one of the few in the 90s and 2000s that was still a pro-life Democrat when their party was shifting to pro-death. He is one of the others that have shifted positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless you're just a completely vacuous person, I think at some point you have to decide when your principles are going to carry over your politics. And there have been some brave, courageous folks on both sides of the aisle that have stood by principles from time to time. The only modern day Democrat in our region that I'm aware of who's holding a significant office and who is still pro-life is Representative Steve Butts.
Oh,
he
yes.
is a pro-life Democrat.
Yes.
And Chris, we're going to see very soon whether or not there is enough pro-life Democrats left anywhere near the city of St. Louis, because he's running for state Senate, and he's in a very vigorous primary. And so we'll watch that and see whether or not there's anyone left in the Democratic Party, voting-wise, who wants to support a pro-life Democrat.
And before we get to the other big news of the day, Tim, I want to take a couple of minutes of personal privilege to note some other notable deaths, to me at least personally, that happened also yesterday. You know that famous saying that deaths seem to happen in threes. Well, yesterday, my sixth grade teacher, Gwendolyn Reed, passed away yesterday. And those that, may not know her, she was the longtime district director for Congressman Clay. She retired from the Hazel School District in the 80s and got involved in politics. And even though we were on the opposite sides of the political aisle, I saw her 5 or 6 years ago, and she told me that she was very proud of me for being involved in politics and trying to state what I believe is right and being forceful about it. And she never tried to put me down about being a Republican. She respected the fact that I was involved in politics. And Gwendolyn Reed, a thing that was notable to me and other black students in the Hazel School District in the late 70s, early 80s was, there weren't a lot of black people in the Hazelwood School District. Gwendolyn Reed was my first black teacher ever in sixth grade. And as a fellow classmate of mine said, that it was amazing. It was a beautiful thing to walk into that sixth grade classroom on the first day of class and see someone that looked like you. And she carried herself with elegance and grace. And she made us feel that we belonged in the Hazel School District, in that school, even though there weren't a lot of us. And so that's one thing that I will always remember about her. And, I send my prayers and condolences, and my thoughts are with Gwendolyn Reed's family. Then we had another notable passing yesterday at the Republican Party, Tim. June Schmidt, who was a St. Louis County committee woman and a state committee woman up in North County. She passed yesterday after a lengthy illness. So 2 notable deaths in my life. I am going to miss June Schmidt and Gwendolyn Reed. They both had very large impacts on my life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, may they rest in peace. Those were not famous people, but they were famous to you.
Yeah.
And I knew June, famous to me. And it's important for us to take stock of lives well lived. And your teacher obviously had a significant impact on you, as so many of those teachers do in our formative years. And that's why we can recall them and remember them decades later.
Exactly. And the other big story of the day yesterday, Tim, it's another one. There's a pattern.
Again.
There's a pattern here. Joey cut one.
This morning, police in Rhode Island are trying to piece together what led to these chaotic moments at a high school hockey game. Video capturing the sound of gunshots at an ice rink. Police say the shooter opened fire around 2:30 Monday, killing 2 people and critically injuring 3 others.
There was one lone suspect, that this was a targeted event. It looked like it was a family dispute.
Overnight, authorities identifying the shooter as Robert Dorgan, who they say also went by Roberta Esposito. Social media posts showing Dorgan discussing getting gender reassignment surgery and recently responding to attacks on a transgender congresswoman, writing, quote, "Do not wonder why we go berserk."
Tim, I don't know, have you seen a picture of this gunman? But he had more muscles than me, you, and Joey put together.
Yes, clownish would be a really good way to describe this person. I don't know, Chris, if this guy was just being a goofball because he wasn't really trying very hard to look like a woman.
Not
but,
laughing at the
was
situation because it's not funny, but your statement was funny.
no, you're right. And I think if we don't laugh, we would absolutely cry because the tragedy of this. So whether or not this guy meant anything of what he said or not, he was evoking the trans movement, right? So we'll never know if he was truly trans or just pretending to be, but he was utilizing that. And as you mentioned, this is one in a long string of, quote, trans violence that we've seen. Just last week, Chris, a 6-foot, 18-year-old boy who wanted to be a petite woman. Remember, we talked about this. The story that was the biggest non-story because the media didn't report it, the mass shooting in Canada, the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. Last summer, we had a male by the name of Robert Westman who killed 2 children and injured many more at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. Chris, we had the bizarre, still seeking answers from the 2023 Nashville school shooting with the girl who identified as a boy. We could go on and on, Chris, because unfortunately the list does go on. And as you said, there's a pattern here for people who actually want to pay attention. There is no pattern, I guess, if you're in the national corrupt corporate media and you just want to keep whistling past this ever-filling graveyard.
And, we don't sidestep the truth here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. We are not politically correct. You've said it. I've said it many times here. I don't know when the world will accept this fact that these people have a mental illness. You have a mental illness when you believe that you were assigned, as they say, the wrong birth, the wrong sex at birth. And I think a lot of these shootings, they happen because people will not play into their false reality and will not call them by their pronouns and call them who they are. And unfortunately, because they can't accept that and they can't accept themselves, they take it out on innocent victims. And yesterday was another example of that. This gunman fired 14 shots, killed 2 people, a schoolgirl in a place you wouldn't expect, Rhode Island. You think that'd be a pretty safe place, not a lot of crime there. Mental illness is everywhere, and the transgender movement, people that support that, are supporting mental illness. I said it, and I stand by that.
Yeah, these people don't need to be facilitated. They don't need to be encouraged. They don't need to have their otherwise healthy body parts lopped off. They need help. They need help. And if you think that we're just a couple of old, middle-aged cranky guys who are making fun of people, that's not the truth whatsoever. This is factual, what we're saying here. Gender dysphoria, and we've had plenty of physicians, several of whom come on this show regularly, doctors Randy Tobler and Bob Onder, who have backed us up on this. Gender dysphoria is in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. You don't believe me? Look it up. It's in the DSM-5. It is a disorder that is marked by a state of severe, persistent distress. I'm reading from the DSM right now. Caused by an incongruence between an individual's internal gender identity and their assigned sex at birth. If that doesn't sound like a clinical diagnosis, I don't know what does. And so these folks need help. They don't need facilitation. They don't need encouragement, because a lot of times, especially the younger ones, as we've seen, they get facilitated and encouraged. And then what happens, Chris? They get older, the hormones stabilize, and then they wake up one day in shock that they've done what they've done to their bodies through excessive hormones, through excessive medications, through, God forbid, irreversible, in most cases, or almost irreversible surgeries. And they want to do what? They want to detransition.
Yeah.
And God bless those souls who have stepped forward, the Chloe Coles and others who have bravely entered capitals like the Missouri State Capitol and testified against this barbaric practice. I believe we're going to look back on this period, and it is going to be looking back with one of abject horror as to what we did to our children.
And I've seen many studies that show that people that do go through gender reassignment surgery, they think that is the answer for them. And when they do go it, some of them regret it, and some of them are unhappy because this wasn't the solution they were looking for. They thought they were going to find happiness by lobbing off body parts. But they are sadly mistaken that that didn't happen. All right, we got a huge show for you. We got David Stokes. Data centers are back in the news. We'll talk to him about that. Chris's Corner from Munich with confusion. And 5:06, we'll have the Speaker's Stump Speech.
Yes, we're going to have special guest Representative Jeff Coleman. Chris, he is a veteran legislator in his 8th year in the Missouri House. He's from the Kansas City side of the state, and he's been working a lot on something that's been a popular topic this year in the Missouri legislature, tax cuts and tax reform.
And then at 5:23, we'll have our weekly visit with the doctor, Dr. Randy Tobler. A lot coming up. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Dropping truth bombs and making you think. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Skies are overcast today. It's a little breezy, but the temperatures will be mild, up into the low to mid 60s this afternoon for the high with that breeze. Overnight lows in the 50s tonight, 73 and sunny tomorrow. Nice day, a breezy day. The record high is 74, and we're going to get very close, if not tie it. Then on Thursday, we have a chance for a few storms. The high 72 degrees, still breezy, and we could see some strong storms in the afternoon. In the KMOV Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right and duty. The government needs to step up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion.
Let me give you a real-world example of what I mean when I tell you Royal Banks of Missouri is a local community bank. I had lunch a couple of weeks ago with Mitch Baton. He's the CEO of Royal Banks at a restaurant that is one of his clients. The owner told Mitch he's been waiting weeks for a big out-of-town bank to approve a loan so he can refurbish his business. Paperwork was sent off, committee reviews, probably was sitting on a desk in New York somewhere. He explained to Mitch that his plan was he had collateral. He was going to use his own savings to back up the loan. And when Mitch heard that, he approved the loan right there on the spot. No loan committee, no corporate runaround, no waiting on someone who's never set foot in St. Louis. That's the difference with Royal Banks. Decisions are made here by people who know the community and care about local businesses. If you're tired of being just a number, it might be time to bank where relationships still matter. That's Royal Banks of Missouri. I've been with Royal Banks of Missouri for more than 20 years because relationships still matter to them. 16 locations across St. Louis, St. Charles, Illinois, and Northeast Missouri. They're locally owned, independently run, invested right here in St. Louis. Learn more at royalbanksofmo.com, royalbanksofmo.com, Royal Banks of Missouri, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
This is Tony Colombo, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the cheesesteak made with American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms, and you have to include a side of their amazing fries. I love Capriati's, and you will too.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester and McKnight in Rock Hill.
If you have a tree that you think is dead, it might not be dead. Why don't you try to save it first with Roots Plus? Roots Plus can help you save your tree and keep your cash. RootsPlusLLC.com. That's RootsPlusLLC.com or 314-440-3662.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at Stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time.
A new plan introduced at St. Louis City Hall today could reshape the area around the downtown stadiums and concert venues. The proposal would create one sports and entertainment district.
This would connect all the major venues from Energizer Park to Busch Stadium, the Enterprise Center, and the Dome. So when visitors come downtown for a game or concert, the entire area feels safer, better lit, and easier to navigate.
428 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And Tim, let's see what David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy, thinks about this new proposal.
David Stokes over at the Show Me Institute.
In high school, you talk about spike. I had a very short spiked. It was spiked.
I knew there's some spike somewhere in that stuff.
It wasn't very punky. It was more Leave It to Beaver-ish, maybe.
David Stokes, how are you, my friend?
Good afternoon, Chris. Good afternoon, Tim.
David, when I hear entertainment districts, I've talked to you for quite a while now. We have here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, and entertainment districts usually accompany taxes along with those. You heard that clip there of a proposed entertainment district in the city of St. Louis. Your thoughts on this? Will this revitalize downtown and bring people back?
I do not think so. They had an entertainment district in downtown St. Louis for many, many, many years, and it was very popular. It was called the Cleats Landing. It was on the north side of downtown, and people went there all the time. I went there all the time. Tons of fun. I even worked at Mississippi Nights briefly back.
I never knew that.
Back in its heyday. Yeah, I was a bouncer at Mississippi Nights.
You a bouncer?
Yeah, they primarily assigned me to the teenage water.
Okay.
I was trying to do that, but no, it was great. But do I think that they're going to, with this new community improvement district, and that's what it is? It's a new community improvement district. Keep in mind, downtown already has one community improvement district that overlays all of downtown. Many of the businesses there like it, but many of the residents of downtown hate it. They feel like they get very little for their money for the SID that they pay into it. So this is just a second SID. Now there's no local tax for this SID. So I would predict the residents who don't have to pay for it will dislike it less. It's entirely state money, about $2.5 million a year. And so it's a state-funded community improvement district dedicated towards things like increased security, which is of course good. They want increased police patrol, including people on horses, which I'm a fan of that. And then they want to do things like you read the article. They can guarantee ticket sales. So if somebody wants to have a concert down there, they'll guarantee a set number of tickets. So that seems like a waste of money. But if it works, it works. Do I think this is going to work? No, I don't think it's going to work at all. It's not technically a tax subsidy or an incentive. It's not damaging the tax base. It's just sort of a $2.5 million a year bailout of state government for downtown St. Louis. Will it be worth it? Maybe, but I doubt it.
David, it sounds like this is more small ball to me, instead of, and this is maybe a good segue into the other topics I know we're going to speak with you about today, like cutting the income tax for all Missourians, or maybe putting up, maybe investing in data centers, as the future of something we could have here. Instead, we're playing like this little crony capitalist game of, let's put a little special interest slush fund here in the state and one over there and one for this group and one for that industry, instead of making Missouri an attractive place to live, work, and raise a family for anyone and everybody.
Well, it's absolutely what they're doing here. Now with this small $2.5 million a year state-funded community improvement district going mostly to increase police and security presence, I mean, at least it's addressing the biggest problem with downtown St. Louis is that people don't feel safe there, and I'm not saying they should. So if it makes the safety and security of downtown better, could it work? Yeah, perhaps. But nobody's going to go downtown until they feel safer. And the Business Journal just did an article about how businesses and the property values downtown are plummeting, absolutely plummeting the value of the building. So then they just keep individually asking for more subsidies, like the AT&T building, which is down to assessed at $1.2 million. So really the same as, it's the biggest office building in the region. It's assessed basically the same as a very nice home, and they want more tax subsidies. Is this SID the worst type of proposal? No, it's not. The new Downtown Innovation District, which is an enormous subsidy that's being proposed, that's just repeating the same failed plan over and over. The SID might be a little better. We'll see if it works. I'm not optimistic, but I'd love to be wrong.
Speaking with David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. David, we've spoken with you on this topic many times about data centers. That is the hot topic around the metro area. Now, Forrestal is now meeting about them. Maybe a bit of common sense happened in the city of St. Louis. Aldermen on Friday rejected a push for a temporary halt on new data centers in the city. Your thoughts overall?
Yeah, we'll take it out to St. Charles and Warren County in a second, but definitely a good move in the city of St. Louis to reject a proposal for a ban on new data centers. And I believe down in Festus in Jefferson County, they've also rejected an idea, a really bad idea, that every new data center requires a public vote of the people. That's, that's a crazy idea. We elect people to make these decisions, not have a ballot issue every time something minor comes up. So now in Forrestal, you've got something that I'll admit I'm a little bit confused by. They want to do a data center in Warren County, just over the county line from Forrestal in St. Charles County. But first they want Forrestal to annex about 200 acres of property. I will admit, and if people can text the show and tell, I'm all ears. I don't see why Forrestal has to annex this land for it to be a data center, whether for better or worse. Is Warren County, perhaps somebody tell me, has Warren County's elected officials come out vehemently opposed to all data centers? I would doubt that very much. I doubt Warren County zoning and planning is so strict that you could never do a data center there. That seems really, really strange. So I'm certainly not opposed to a data center in the Warren County Forrestal area. I just don't understand why there's some sort of move that Forrestal has to annex the land first. I find that very, very strange, and definitely it puts an antenna up for what they're trying to do there. Doesn't mean at all I'm opposed to it. Obviously, in general, I would be pretty supportive, but I would like to know why they have this annexation part of the plan.
David, one of the things that you've been extremely clear on is the fact that data centers, if a community decides it wants one, if the regulations are appropriate, if all the concerns about water and electricity are taken care of, that we should not be subsidizing them at all, right? Because the groups that want to deploy data centers, the technology industry, the demand is so high that they don't need any assistance whatsoever as far as TIFs or any kind of tax abatement. But on the other hand, David, have there been any studies or projections done yet to show what they could do on the positive side of the ledger as to potentially reducing residents' tax liabilities, property tax liabilities in places such as Jefferson County, where I know it's a hot topic right now, especially in the city of Festus, and also out in St. Charles County? There's been a couple different locations mentioned.
Right, absolutely. St. Charles and Forrestal, if they annex this land in Warren County, I don't have a study to cite here, but I will tell you that absolutely the ability for property tax decreases to the residents of these areas is tremendous. Let me go back. I mentioned that Business Journal article about downtown St. Louis and how commercial values are plummeting. The only exception in that article is a couple of the buildings in downtown St. Louis that are data centers. Those are the only buildings growing the NSS valuation and growing in the property and growing in the property taxes that they pay to the city of St. Louis here. And because that article was just talking about land and buildings and not the taxes on the equipment, I bet it sort of undersells it. The equipment is taxable in data centers, and that could be worth just an enormous amount of money. So absolutely, if you approve and get these large data centers and are smart enough not to abate it or incentivize it or anything, they will pay an enormous amount in property taxes that will hopefully lead to tax reductions for everyone in your community. I mean, there's a lot of money with these things here. The equipment they bring in, it's like having a new auto plant come in that just pays an enormous amount in business property taxes, and the effects for homeowners and residents in the area can be large.
Speaking with David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute. David, this is an issue that you and I were familiar with when we were St. Louis County employees, when we worked for a couple of councilmen, is the St. Louis County Jail. It's had issues for many, many years now. This story has kind of been flying below the radar, but apparently Saturday over the weekend, there was a mini riot at the jail. Jail guards had to use pepper spray to subdue the inmates because they wouldn't go back to their cells. It seems like there's a story almost every week about the St. Louis County Jail. What is the issue there? What is the problems?
Well, I know that members of the county council have been trying to get answers to it, and they're being stonewalled in finding out what those problems are. At least they were being stonewalled as of a few days ago when I heard one of them give a report. So I don't know how the county council can serve as the check on the county executive's office, which it is designed to be, according to the county charter. It is a check on a powerful county executive, but they can't do that if they're not allowed to get any information on things such as a riot in Clayton, which are not words these are not words that you say a whole lot. Hey, there was a riot in Clayton. It's almost like, wow. But no, it's terrible, obviously, and I don't, as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this, I don't think anybody was seriously hurt. I'll certainly stand corrected if I'm wrong, and I hope I'm not. But certainly the council needs to know what happened, because, yes, this has been a problem in the city and in the county, and I'm not turning this on the city of St. Louis. It's been a problem in the county that the jail has been run poorly for several years now. There's been a number of deaths. There's been a number of problems. And I get it. Jails are very difficult to run, and bad things are going to happen in a jail. But there's a consistent failure of the management of that jail, and it's frustrating to see. I'm not looking to blame somebody. You just want the problem to be addressed. But if you've got council members who are looking to address it and they're not being given the information that they want, how are they going to do that? So that's the latest troubling aspect here, is the stonewalling of the council as they try to find more info. And I hope that changes in the near future.
David, or is the Show Me? I know the Show Me Institute has had a ton of events recently. Anything coming up in the near future that we need to tell the listeners about?
We do. We have another lunch event at the MAC here in about 3 weeks. I think it's on March 4th, talking about things going on in our region. I think I might even be the speaker.
Oh.
I've got to double check that. But I think I'm speaking on March 4th. I'd hate to be wrong. But we're definitely having an event at the MAC West on March 4th, and I hope people check it out at showmeinstitute.org.
David, you'll be happy to know your memory is correct. It's a legislative update from, you're one of the experts. It says from our experts, education, energy, and taxes. There you have it.
It's been a busy day. I just got back from Jefferson City, where I was speaking at a panel at the Municipal League today for lunch, then dropping some stuff off in the Capitol. So it's been a very busy day. Got back just in time to call into the show.
David, we know one of the big stories in the legislature right now is the elimination of Missouri's income tax. Tim is in Jefferson City covering that, of course. And a lot of people are afraid of eliminating the Missouri income tax because they saw what happened next door in Kansas, where they ended up having a huge budget deficit and didn't work out as planned. You recently wrote an op-ed about the Missouri income tax and how it's different from the Kansas tax cuts. Please explain.
Happy to, and thank you guys for giving me a chance. This op-ed is up at the Post-Dispatch website, so stltoday.com. Appreciate the Post running it. It was written by myself and my colleague, Elias Sapellis, and Elias is the real expert on this topic. It's his primary area of focus. But about two and a half weeks ago, the Post carried an op-ed from a political scientist in Kansas, and he just wrote the piece saying Missouri is just following down Kansas's path, and the Kansas income tax cuts were a disaster. So don't do it. And it was a really... I appreciate the Post giving us a chance to respond, because that's just crazy. And I'm not, Elias and I, and nobody at the Show Me Institute is going to defend what happened in Kansas when they had their tax cuts about 15 years ago. And they didn't eliminate the income tax for everybody, although they did eliminate it for one section, they made a lot of mistakes in how they did that. The most unusual one is that they completely eliminated the income tax for one section of businesses, pass-through entities like S-corps and LLCs. So what happened was instantly every C corporation and other type just reclassified themselves and tax payments plummeted. But you didn't have any of the benefits of a tax cut. Businesses didn't have to invest or grow or hire. It was sort of an accounting trick, and it failed. Missouri's not going to do that. And the frustrating thing about the constant effort that says Kansas tried it and it failed, so Missouri shouldn't do it, is that over the past 20 years, dozens of states have cut income taxes significantly, including, Missouri. We've reduced ours. And the failures in Kansas were not repeated in any of these other dozens of states. Arkansas, our South has cut taxes. Tennessee, of course, has never had a full income tax, and they're growing leaps and bounds more than Missouri because of it. But they also removed a few years ago the last sort of tiny vestige of an income tax that they had. So in all these other states, you've had success through income tax cuts, economic growth, economic vibrancy. And yes, what they did in Kansas failed. So we should not repeat what they did in Kansas. The Missouri legislature and the governor are not putting together a plan that's going to repeat the mistakes in Kansas. It's going to be much more similar to what has worked in many other states, up to and including Tennessee. So that's just the point of the op-ed, and always appreciate the chance to talk about it, and the chance to talk about it not only in the papers, but also on shows like this.
That's David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org, and on X, David C. Stokes, and his op-ed is on the stltoday.com website. David, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Thank you, guys. Always great talking with you, and see you both soon.
Thank you, sir. All right, Tim, Chris's Corner from Munich with confusion. Last weekend was the Munich Security Conference. Marco Rubio did a stellar job. Some of the Democrats that are looking to be presidential contenders in 2028, not so well. I'll have the story coming up on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Follow us on Rumble at News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Skies are overcast today. It's a little breezy, but the temperatures will be mild, up into the low to mid 60s this afternoon for the high with that breeze. Overnight lows in the 50s tonight, 73 and sunny tomorrow. Nice day, a breezy day. The record high is 74, and we're going to get very close, if not tie it. Then on Thursday, we have a chance for a few storms. The high 72 degrees, still breezy, and we could see some strong storms in the afternoon. In the KMOV Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kent Earhart.
News, analysis, opinion.
You know, they're literally taking the Constitution and putting it in a paper shredder.
News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC.
Craving the freshest in town? Anthony's Produce is your daily destination for nature's finest. Browse our rainbow of quality fruits and vegetables. Always fresh, always delicious. Hosting an event? Let us create stunning fruit bouquets and vegetable trays, or treat someone special to our chocolate-covered pineapple. We proudly stock hundreds of locally made products. And yes, we've even got seasoned firewood for those cozy evenings. Available for pickup or delivery. Anthony's Produce.
701 Jungerman Road in St. Peters. Call 636-936-0496 or order online at anthonysproduce.com.
They served our country with honor. Now it's our turn to serve them. Join the freedom13.org for an unforgettable gala honoring America's heroes, February 27th at the Foundry Arts Center in St. Charles. A special evening supporting Freedom 13's bold mission. 50 camps in 50 states on more than 50,000 acres, building 650 homes for veterans, police, and their families. Tickets and sponsorship opportunities are available now. Visit thefreedom13.org. That's thefreedom13.org.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Today, story behind the story, the numerous CIA attempts to kill Fidel Castro.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
On Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador? No, please. I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, it is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
4:50 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Tim, that is Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at the Munich Security Conference. She was up there with 6 other Democrats trying to burnish their foreign policy chops. How do you think she did?
Democrats proved, Chris, they're not ready for prime time on the world stage. They're not Olympic quality, are they? Whereas Marco Rubio, I think, won the gold medal at Munich this past weekend.
I agree. My fellow Newsmax contributor, Mark Halpern, noted political analyst, he has on his Facebook page top 8 Democratic nomination rankings. He's got number 1, Gavin Newsom, number 2, Josh Shapiro, number 3, J.B. Pritzker, number 4, Kamala Harris, number 5, AOC, number 6, Pete Buttigieg, number 7, Rahm Emanuel, and number 8, Mark Kelly. AOC and Kamala, I don't know about them, but the others, I'm not saying they're competent, but they are the front runners, I would think, in the Democratic presidential 2028 nomination contest.
Yeah, he might have to restructure those rankings a little bit after their performances this past weekend. I would like to know if he took that into consideration or not. And Chris, all joking aside, they sounded like complete morons, to make it a technical phrase. They were horrible. Like, if you don't believe us, go listen to AOC's answers. It sounded as bad, if not worse, than a typical Kamala Harris word salad. Like, she had trouble even getting started with her answers. She sounded like a sputtering outboard motor. I mean, she just couldn't figure out how to answer the question in the first place. Whereas, Marco Rubio was smooth as silk, in his address, and he kind of held the line on Trump foreign policy, but yet had a great tone enough that even the Euro socialists tended to pretty much nod in agreement.
Speaking of AOC, she is in the Chris's Corner that's coming up, titled "From Munich with Confusion."
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
All right, let's talk about Munich. Last weekend, 8 potential 2028 Democratic presidential contenders showed up at the Munich Security Conference to burnish their foreign policy credentials. This is where serious people go to sound serious about war, peace, alliances, and American power. And then there was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was asked a very basic, very adult, very unavoidable question for anyone who wants to be president of the United States. Should the U.S. commit troops to defend Taiwan? Now, this is not a trick question. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. But you do have to say something coherent. Instead, this is what we got. I think that this is such a I think this is of course a very long-standing policy. That's not an answer. That's a filibuster of syllables. That's the sound of someone realizing in real time that slogans don't work when the topics is China, Taiwan, and potential global war. And the reaction was immediate. She got mocked, not by conservatives, by foreign policy professionals, by people in that room who actually understand what deterrence means. So AOC does what modern politicians always do when they bomb. She called the New York Times directly from Germany to, quote, set the record straight. She says she didn't go to Munich because she's running for president. She went to, quote, sound the alarm bells about runaway inequality and far-right populism. Think about that. You go to the Munich Security Conference, NATO, China, Russia, Ukraine, and your takeaway is income inequality. That's like showing up to a trauma unit and giving a lecture on student loan forgiveness. And then, just to put a bow on it, while trying to show off her foreign policy chops in Berlin, she incorrectly stated that Venezuela is below the equator. It's not. It's above the equator. This from someone who majored in international relations. Look, geography isn't everything, but when you're trying to convince the world you're ready to command the most powerful military on earth, basic facts matter. Now contrast that with Rahm Emanuel, another 2028 contender who's actually served in the Indo-Pacific. When asked about Munich and how well the potential presidential candidates fared, he didn't name names, but the message was unmistakable. He said, as somebody who has served time in the Indo-Pacific, I don't think so, which means he didn't think they did very well. Translation, some people came prepared, some people came to cosplay. And here's the bottom line. Foreign policy is not vibes, it's not hashtags, it's not moral posturing for applause lines back home. It's hard choices, it's clarity under pressure, and it's knowing where Venezuela is on a map. If Democrats think the world stage is just another activist conference, they're going to keep learning the hard way that seriousness still matters. Because when China is watching, is not a strategy. And that's today's Chris's Corner.
Yeah, Chris, I thought the National Review headline said it all. The New York Times tries to impotently fix AOC's Munich disaster. I mean, look, I guess, Chris, she thought she was going to like TikTok her way through a foreign policy speech but did she forget that she wasn't taping herself in her New York City galley kitchen? I mean, she should have been prepared for this. And okay, not only were her answers bad, but think about, and completely confusing, think about that fact. Think about the fact that she intentionally went there to speak and do interviews at this conference and was completely and totally unprepared. That situation alone, to me, disqualifies her from anything higher than, I can't believe she's a congresswoman, but okay, there she sits.
Yeah, as I said yesterday, I don't think AOC is serious about running for president. I think, as you said, Tim, she's trying to get TikTok views and to burnish her social media presence. But if last weekend was any indication, she is definitely not ready for prime time. That was a disaster. And I'm sure a lot of people have told her that as well. As I said, in order for her to run for president, she'd have to give up her congressional seat. And I don't think she is going to do that. I think she was just trying to make a name for herself and maybe show in the future that she has presidential chops. But she failed miserably.
Indeed. I could not agree more. Yeah, I think her goal in life is to keep doing what she's doing and maybe run for the U.S. Senate someday, that Chuck Schumer seat. That would be about it. But hey, Chris, to be in the most exclusive club in the world, the U.S. Senate, not a bad goal to have.
Not bad at all. All right, you've got a special guest on today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Yeah, we're going to speak with Representative Jeff Coleman after we come back. He is the chairman of the Special Committee on Tax Reform, which we've been talking about quite a bit. Also, member of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, a veteran of the Missouri House. We're going to chat with him next about where the House has been over the last few weeks and where he hopes they head next.
And then we'll have our weekly visit with the great Dr. Randy Tobler at 5:23. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey everybody, Senator Eric Schmidt here, inviting you to the statewide Lincoln Day celebration, February 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be a great weekend with fellow patriots. We'll talk about how we're going to continue to save this country, deliver on President Trump's agenda, and also celebrate America 250. So join us there. It'll be a lot of fun.
Learn more about the 2026 Lincoln Days and get tickets at Missouri.gop. That's Missouri.gop. Paid for by the Missouri Republican Party. Jennifer Finch, Treasurer.
The boats are back at Missouri's premier boat and fishing show.
February 20th through 22nd at America Center.
Take advantage of screaming deals on hundreds of boats.
Check out wake surf and pontoon boats,
fishing boats and luxury cruisers,
personal watercraft, and more.
Enjoy non-stop entertainment.
Live stingrays, pro angler demos.
Get ready for fun in the sun
at the St. Louis Boat and Fishing Show.
February 20th through 22nd at America Center.
Go to stlouisboatshows.com for info. Kids are free.
Is your portfolio prepared for the biggest risks facing investors today? Hi, it's Tim Jones. High inflation and a rapidly changing economy may impact your investments. If you haven't made appropriate changes, your portfolio may not be positioned to address some of the biggest risks in today's economy. That means it's time to request your free portfolio review from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on News Talk STL 101.9. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create a portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free portfolio review, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas & Company, Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. A deadly shooting was an apparent domestic murder-suicide at a Rhode Island ice rink yesterday. 3 others are hospitalized in critical condition. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A gunman who opened fire at a Rhode Island youth hockey game, killing 2 adults and injuring 3 others, was stopped after a fellow spectator intervened. Pawtucket Police Chief Tina Goncalves.
That's probably what led to a swift end of this tragic event.
She said the shooter died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot. Goncalves says investigators think the shooting at the Dennis M. Lynch Arena was targeted and may have involved a family dispute. Governor Dan McKee says the state is grieving again after another recent mass shooting. Audio courtesy of WJAR. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The federal government is stepping in to help protect the Potomac River after a sewage mishap. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
The collapse of a major sewer pipe in the D.C. suburbs of Montgomery County, Maryland, has caused an overflow of more than 240 million gallons of wastewater into the Potomac River. On Monday, President Trump accused Maryland's Democratic governor of mismanagement and directed the federal government to step in. But the governor's office pushed back and said the leak is the federal government's responsibility. Greg Clugston, Washington.
In a social media post, President Trump remembered civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, saying in part, "Jesse was a force of nature like few before him. He loved his family greatly, and to them I send my deepest sympathies and condolences. Jesse will be missed." Jackson died today at the age of 84. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 32 points. The Nasdaq rose 31, with the S&P 500 index up by 7 points. More at townhall.com.
Newsmax, you like Newsmax? I like it too. Newsmax, you like Newsmax? I like it too.
It's true. Millions of Americans agree with President Trump, and they're switching to Newsmax. They're watching great shows with Greta, Carl Higbie, Rob Schmidt, Finnerty, and more. If you're tired of big media, start watching Newsmax. It's free to start. Go to newsmaxplus.com for immediate access. Get all of President Trump's most important events live. Imagine watching Mike Huckabee's Israel Report, our Melania documentary, Clint Eastwood, Charlie Kirk specials, even the movie Jesus of Nazareth by Franco Zeffirelli. Once you start Newsmax Plus, you won't stop. So try it for free. Go to newsmaxplus.com, then download the app. It's easy. So make the switch to Newsmax Plus today.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Boy, a taste of spring on Wednesday. It will be warmer. It will be sunny. What a nice day. 56 in the morning. It's about 10 degrees above the normal high for the day. 73 and mostly sunny skies in the afternoon. The record is 74 from 1971. Thursday, still warm, 73, but anywhere from the late morning through the afternoon, let's be on guard for an isolated strong to severe storm. We've made it a First Alert weather days. We'll be on guard for that. Colder air rushes in here Friday into the weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Your business moves fast. PRI Global keeps it moving smarter for almost 30 years, delivering top tech talent to help companies grow stronger, custom applications, simplifying your operations, securing your data, modernizing your business from the cloud up. And with Prismatic, you're going to get real-time insights, automated workflows, people, process, platform. PRI Global delivers all three. PRIGlobal.com.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Are you going to sit down with Democrats this week on DHS funding, sir?
I will, but, we have to protect our law enforcement. They've done a great job. I just got finished saying that we have the best murder numbers. Horrible thing to say, but we have the best murder numbers since 1900. That's before my father was born.
Are there any demands that Democrats are making that you're okay with?
Well, I don't like some of the things they're asking for. We're going to protect law enforcement. We're going to protect ICE.
506 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show, and I think we're in day 3 or 4 of the partial government shutdown. As Bob Onder, Congressman, said last Friday, the Democrats want to, for the first shutdown, they want to give illegal aliens Medicaid, and in this one, they want to make sure illegal aliens stay in the country. Tim, doesn't sound like a winning issue to me.
No, it does not at all. And it's one that they seem to be on the wrong side, Chris, of yet another 80-20 issue. They're on the wrong side of it on illegal immigration, on government funding, because they're only hurting the TSA, the Coast Guard, FEMA, things that a lot of Americans are like, why are you shutting that down? And they're on the wrong side of voter ID. And so if those are the things they want to run on, Chris, I kind of like the Republicans' chances in what's otherwise going to be a very difficult, historically, midterm election year.
And as we know here in the Midwest, Tornado Alley, tornado season is coming upon us. And FEMA, of course, helps people out when the homes have been destroyed or natural disasters happen. And it's not going to look good for them if there is a tornado somewhere in the Midwest and FEMA is shut down.
Indeed. We're going to have a little reminder of that, I think, in about 48 hours when we drop from 72 degrees to 42 degrees, and it's supposed to be precipitated by a bit of a storm front, reminding us that that stormatic season is just right around the corner.
Tim, I'm watching the monitor, and it looks like you've got a newbie with you there. I don't think Representative Coleman has ever been on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show.
I do not believe he has, so we're going to welcome in here, and if Joey's ready, we will officially make him the subject of today's Speaker's Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So Representative Coleman, when I'm back in the studio with Chris, he does a monologue segment, Chris's Corner. I do the Speaker's Stump Speech, and I talk about something or other. But when I'm here in Jefferson City, I like to feature you legislators as the subject of the stump speech. So, Chris, I'll introduce him and then kick him off with the first question. So, Representative Jeff Coleman is the chairman of the Special Committee on Tax Reform in the House. He's also on the Elections, Professional Registration, Ways and Means. Very important committees in the House, I can tell you. From my experience, he is a Republican who represents part of Jackson County. That's directly on the other side of the state from us. He was the mayor pro tem in the city of Grain Valley before he came up here to beautiful Jefferson City. Representative Coleman, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Jeff, you're also a member of the Freedom Caucus, and one of the priorities of the conservatives in the House is to try to do something to continue to cut and hopefully eventually eliminate our income tax. You're actually a financial advisor also by trade, so you know a thing or two about numbers, probably more than Chris and I together. So why do you support that effort, number one, and why do you think it's important for our legislature to continue on the work that's already been done to lower our income tax to this point?
Well, absolutely support it, and the reason that I support it is because we're falling behind from our neighbors, Tennessee, Texas, some of the states that already have zero income tax on their people. And I think that if we do it in the right way, and I think there's a two-pronged, probably a three-pronged approach, but the most important two parts to start with are going to be cut spending, and then to graduate that cut on the income tax down to zero over a short period of time. But absolutely, I think we have to do that in order to entice business to our state.
Representative Coleman, I got to start off with a sports question. You are on the opposite side of the state there. That's where our only NFL team in Missouri was located. But we're hearing rumblings that the Kansas City Chiefs may not move to Kansas. What's the latest on that?
Well, there are definitely those rumors. Kansas, I think, is having buyer's remorse. And so there's a question of whether they go through with that huge enticement over to their state, because they were telling everybody it wasn't going to raise taxes. I think they're beginning to realize that that might not be the case. So, yeah, I think there is a possibility that they come back, but I'm still not really on the boat that says let's give them what they want, because I didn't vote for that in the first place. I voted no for that bill for them to stay here, and I'd probably do it again. I don't think it's our position to give billionaires extra money. I think they can do that on their own. I need to keep my money.
Jeff, the something we don't necessarily understand on our side of the state, the eastern side of the state, is the border war that is occurring, that has been occurring. There was a real war back in the day, right? 150 some years ago, but there's an economic border war now. I believe it's been going on for decades between Kansas and Missouri, because you do have a river over there, but it doesn't divide the states in two. We have the Mississippi on our side, and then we have the People's Republic of Illinois, who do everything they can to send us economic development. But you've got two very competitive states on the western side, and so the border war is a real thing, isn't it? Unfortunately.
It is. And I was part of that bill. I handled that bill on the House side.
There was an effort to stop that?
That's
basically?
right. It was to do away with the incentives to try to entice the business across the state line. So Missouri somebody on the Kansas side, they would get past their incentive timeframes, and they wouldn't have any incentives there anymore. So they would then come to Missouri. Missouri would offer their incentives. They would move across the line. Their employees didn't even have to move their houses. They just go across the state line to go to work. And so when our incentives ran out, then they'd go back to Kansas, and Kansas would offer their incentives, and they'd move back over to Kansas. And that bill said no more of that. But the problem was it didn't have any teeth. So it was a handshake, and everybody was all excited about it, but then it didn't really take place. It went into effect, but nobody followed it. So that's another reason that the Chiefs moved across, because Kansas, if we find out, Kansas had been working with Kansas City Chiefs for 2 years prior to this even coming up.
Representative Coleman, we have unfortunately encountered another shooting by a transgender individual, this time in Rhode Island. He killed 2 people. One was a 14-year-old girl and himself. You have sponsored a bill 2580, which prohibits public school staff members from encouraging students in their social transition to being perceived as a member of the opposite biological sex. Tell us about your bill.
Well, it's a bill that actually was presented to me by Senator Joe Nicola, and he asked me to handle that on the floor side. And we've had some changes on it already to actually soften a little bit of the penalties that go along with that, because it was pretty harsh to start with, that if you're a teacher or a staff member of the schools and you enticed that person to continue to go down a path that clearly needs to be addressed by the counselors and not the teachers, that they could lose their job and also go to jail at some point. That has come down off of that original thought process. There's a national organization that has dealt with this in other states, and they came to us and said this is going to be a better path if you tone down that rhetoric and go to the message is still the same, but the penalties are much softer.
Speaking to Representative Jeff Coleman, member of the Missouri Freedom Caucus, chairman of the Special Committee on Tax Reform. Representative, I see you have, and I think I knew this about you, 3 bills filed relating to reformation of property taxes. We have experienced a lot of pain on the eastern side of the state, but my understanding is that you all in Jefferson County have really gotten walloped over the last few years. Give us some examples of how extreme some of your property tax reform hikes have been, some of the assessment increases, and talk about some of these potential solutions that you've proposed.
Jackson County is the worst county in the whole state when it comes to valuations and assessed values. And I've had one bill since 2019, but the problem, some of the issues, I remember in 2019 we had a property and it was a smaller priced property, but it went up 1,500%.
Wow.
That's an actual number. Our average in Jackson County last year was 38%, the average across the board.
Wow.
So that's an issue and has been an issue. There's been court hearings going on all of last year, and the state won those hearings. But the problem is it was too late in the process. The monies had already gone out to the municipalities, so it's hard to get that money back. I don't know what the end result was of that, but my bill originally just limited the assessed value to 2% per year or consumer price index, CPI, whichever's less. I started that back in 2019. Nobody was interested in hearing any of that. It wasn't until about 4 years ago that finally started to get some traction. And then they went away from my bill, and Senator Luetkemeyer got Senate Bill, I think it was 180, approved, which is the senior tax freeze. That was a really good bill after we fixed it. There was some issues when we first passed it. We came back the next year and fixed it. I think it's a really good bill right now because the seniors don't even have kids in school, and they're still going up and up and up, and we're taxing them out of their houses. But now, no longer do they get up. Their taxes go up. It's frozen to what it was the year prior to their county passing that law. And so now there's many other versions of what we should be doing. And I'm in my last year. My bill's not going to make it across the line. So I just fall in line, and we'll figure out a way to get tax relief to everybody in the state. I know that we passed a bill on that dreaded stadium bill last year, but I don't want people to get too excited about that, because it's the that was a little scary.
Yeah, we had somebody slamming
Those
doors.
guys were trying to do a radio show. Stop making all that noise downstairs.
Yeah, I don't know what the senators are. They're a bunch of racket. Yeah.
But I don't want people to get too excited about the last bill that got passed, because I don't think it's going to hold water. I think the courts are going to overturn that. Hopefully they don't, but don't get too excited if they do. So, but there's a lot of backing on these new property tax issues, and I think eventually we will either get rid of them altogether or at least put a cap to them. So.
Representative, a federal judge ruled last week that the gas station slot machines are illegal gambling devices. I'm reading that a bill was passed on Monday, initial approval to create a state-run video lottery system to replace those gas station slot machines. Your thoughts on that, and where do you see this headed?
Well, my personal opinion, and I know there's lots of diverse opinions on this issue, but I voted for that bill. I have a hard time, because a lot of times you find these big corporations, such as the casinos, that want to come in and just shut down any competition, and especially in the smaller business areas. And I have a lot of those in my district. And I've actually talked to these folks, and that's a nice little income stream for them. I do believe that they need to be regulated so that we know who has them, and that they're doing the right things, and that we're not enticing the wrong people in. However, I also think that it's important that we don't put some of these folks out of business.
Yeah, Representative, I saw the vote count on that. It was kind of I had a couple of those back in my day, very rare, but you perfected the bill, which means you give it first round approval, but the bill did not have enough votes to make it out of the House on a final reading. That was Representative Bill Hardwick's bill, another member of the Freedom Caucus. I think it's great the Freedom Caucus is trying to solve these big, giant problems. Do you think that you and Representative Hardwick and some of the other Freedom Caucus folks can get enough? You need about what? You need about another 18 members or so to jump on board. But there was a lot of people undecided on that piece of legislation.
So we need what, 12 plus another
14
14 more votes.
Are there 14 votes out there? Yeah.
It's kind of like it was last year, right? We barely passed it last year. I do think that we can rally up the votes, but I think that there's a lot of people that are getting scared by that court hearing that you're talking about. And so if they understand that those are the ones that are going away, or they're going to be revamped to make sure that they fit with under the rules and the regulations, I think we can get the other 14 to get it through. And we'll see what happens in the Senate.
Stay tuned on that one, Chris. Yeah.
Representative Coleman, before we let you go, if folks want to learn more about you and the bills that you're sponsoring and co-sponsoring, how should they do that?
Well, they can always go to my homepage at the House, which is house.mo.gov, and just look under my name. Or you can go to my Facebook, which is Citizens for Jeff Coleman, on Facebook or TikTok.
And that is Representative Jeff Coleman. He represents the 32nd District on the opposite side of the state where we're at. Representative, it was great talking with you, and I'm sure we'll talk to you many, many more times before May.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, Tim, you know it's that time for the good Dr. Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show. He's up next on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Boy, taste of spring on Wednesday. It will be warmer. It will be sunny. What a nice day. 56 in the morning. It's about 10 degrees above the normal high for the day. 73 and mostly sunny skies in the afternoon. The record is 74 from 1971. Thursday, still warm, 73, but anywhere from the late morning through the afternoon, let's be on guard for an isolated strong to severe storm. We've made it a First Alert weather days. We'll be on guard for that. Colder air rushes in here Friday into the weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
I listen to News Talk STL on the app driving to work.
Download the News Talk STL app.
You got to get the News Talk STL app.
Love the app. Can listen anywhere in St. Louis.
And listen anytime.
News Talk STL right on my phone.
Anywhere.
You know, even the best windows can lose their shine without the right care. And if your windows, doors, or storefront glass are looking dull or streaked, I've got a great local recommendation for you. STL Windows and Doors now offers professional window cleaning through their sister company, STL Window Cleaners, serving homes and businesses all across greater St. Louis. My wife and I, we had our windows cleaned last summer, and I can tell you the difference was incredible. And even 6 months later, they're still clean. Honestly, this isn't some quick and spray wipe job. They use triple filtered, ultra pure water that removes the minerals that cause streaks and spots, leaving your windows crystal clear. STL Window Cleaners handles everything, interior and exterior glass, frames, sills, tracks, screens, and if you've got worn or damaged screens, they'll replace those too. They do it carefully, thoroughly, and professionally. Whether you're getting your home ready to sell, hosting an event, or just want more natural light, they make it easy with flexible scheduling and eco-friendly solutions. They also offer commercial window cleaning for offices and storefronts, working around your schedule to keep your business looking sharp. And remember, they're still the same trusted, family-owned team St. Louis relies on for window and door installations. Give them a call today. Get your windows clean. Get on the schedule at 314-277-5952 or visit stlwindowsanddoors.com, stlwindowsanddoors.com. STL Windows and Doors, making St. Louis homes sparkle all year long.
Hey, when pests invade your home, you need someone you can trust. It's Jamie Ullman here, and at Buckingham Pest Control, they're not just your exterminators. They're your neighbors and friends. A locally owned family business and St. Louis Magazine A-List award winner, providing affordable, quality pest control. Plus, they offer energy-efficient TAP attic insulation, the only insulation that controls pests. BuckinghamPestControl.com. That's BuckinghamPestControl.com.
This Winter Games Update, brought to you by Corel Roofing and Best Buy Flooring.
Westwood One Sports presents this special update on the 2026 Winter Games, sponsored by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. The quarterfinals are all set in men's hockey. Team USA will face Sweden at 3:10 Eastern tomorrow. After Sweden beat Latvia 5-1, the top seed Canada will take on Czechia. Freestyle skiing, American Mac Forehand gets silver in men's big air. He was beaten out by Norway's Tormod Frostad on the very last jump. Americans Troy Podmilsack and Connor Ralph were 4th and 5th, respectively. Figure skating, the women's short program, reigning world champ Alyssa Liu scored the best of the three Americans. In 3rd place, Isabeau Levito 8th, Amber Glenn 13th. The free skate will be on Thursday. And Germany swept the medals in the men's two-man bobsled for the 2nd straight Olympics. Team USA came in 4th. With this Winter Games update, I'm Brad Heller, Westwood One Sports.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Rolling, then I'll watch them roll away again.
What are you expecting from these Iran talks in Geneva tomorrow?
So I'll be involved in those talks indirectly, and they'll be very important. We'll see what can happen. I mean, it's been typically Iran's a very tough negotiator. They're good negotiators, or bad negotiators. I would say they're bad negotiators because we could have had a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential, and we had to send the B-2s. I hope they're going to be more reasonable. They want to make a deal.
528 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And if I was Iran, Tim, I'd be looking to make a deal. You've got 2 aircraft carriers in the region. One of them, the Gerald R-4, the largest aircraft carrier in the world. I'd make a deal if I was them.
Yeah, I guess Iran has to decide, Chris, are they into Harry Carey or are they into self-preservation, right? I mean, when you've got the might of the U.S. Navy and other military support breathing down your neck, you and I have talked about that before. When you're up close and personal with our weapons of war, it's pretty intimidating and pretty daunting, right? And I've stood on the deck of an aircraft carrier and of a battleship, and I wouldn't want one of those things. I'd rather be on the deck rather than have it coming at me. And so I'm sure the Iranians are pretty nervous at this point in time. And like I said, if they're into self-preservation versus self-destruction, they'll probably do everything they can to make a deal.
And let's see what Admiral Randy Tobler thinks about that.
Gentlemen, you're about to enter the fascinating sphere of police work, the world of forensic medicine.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect. Randy Tobler, truth warrior, woke destroyer.
Dr. Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show on News Talk STL Saturdays from 6 to 9. Doctor, how are you?
Well, how's it going, gents? Good to talk with you.
Fantastic. Dr. Tobler, I read a story today that the economic situation in Iran is getting very dire. Someone who visited Iran, his family, for about a month, said that you can now buy yogurt on installment plans there in Iran. That's how high food prices have gotten because of the economic boycott.
It sounds like we're going to kill them by death of the microbiome. It's instead of death by 1,000 cuts, it's like death by ruining their microbiome, and they'll all get autoimmune disease. And there you go.
Got to have that gut health together, right?
Well, if you can't eat your yogurt, for crying out loud, I mean, come on.
Doc, we can definitely, there's a lot of different debate about all the issues here occurring on the home front, but on foreign policy, the Trump administration, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, given the speeches that occurred in Munich over this past weekend of Marco Rubio, the ones we've seen from J.D. Vance and others, Doc, I think on foreign policy, if Americans are watching and paying attention, the Republicans definitely appear to be the ones that know anything about everything that occurs beyond our borders. And we definitely Republicans appear to be the adults in the room. What say you?
Well, I've said it for a long time, and it probably ruffles some really pure anti-intervention in foreign entanglement people, many of whom are in the MAGA core. But I've said for a long time, if America isn't the adult in the room, as you said, if we're not the Irish cop on the corner swinging our billy club, making sure that the kids are staying out of trouble, the kids are going to get in trouble. And sometimes that trouble is going to mean us. But eventually it will if we let the entire world act like a bunch of kids. And so I think by exerting strength and really walking while you're carrying a big stick, but rarely using it, and when you do, really clobbering and then just smiling and walking away rather than getting into a big fist fight. I think that's sort of the right balance of, engaging but not committing like we have erroneously in the past. And I think it's good. I mean, some would call it neo-conservatism, but I think it's not a bad policy. I like to see that. And, of course, presidents have the leeway to do that because they're not encumbered by knucklehead congressmen who are only looking forward to the next election rather than the long road, the long game.
Dr. Tobler, unfortunately, yesterday we had another shooting by a transgender, this time in Rhode Island. 2 people were killed. The gunman killed himself. This is the second shooting in the last probably 4 weeks. The other one, of course, was in Canada, where the confused individual shot up the church or shot up a school and killed 6 people. As a medical professional, your thoughts on the transgender movement? What's going on here?
Look, I know a little bit about hormones, and I know that hormones affect people in different ways, even when they're the right sex steroids for the right biological gender. But when you start taking people and taking a divine, a God-given playing board, chessboard, if you will, and you put checkers on a chessboard, the game doesn't come out the same. And I think that's what we're dealing with. Whether you're giving a girl testosterone, which is an aggression hormone, or whether you're giving a boy estrogen who has testosterone receptors, and now they're so confused they don't know what the hell to do. It's not beyond the realm of possibility, is it? And it probably makes a lot of common sense to folks who know nothing about hormones. That, like, it just, when you try to put square pegs in round holes and round pegs in square holes, somehow things just don't work out right, and people behave differently. And that doesn't always mean violently, but I think since people that are mentally ill will once in a while act out violently, even if they're, men acting violently and women who are women acting in weird ways, by putting out contracts on their husband. Or we saw this sad case where a woman shot her daughter in a cheering competition and herself. What the heck's going on? So hormones affect us in different ways, and when we start manipulating them, when we start, planting, ornamental grass in the tulip garden, it just isn't a very pretty garden anymore. And I think that's what's going on. And we just shouldn't. It reminds me of the old Parquet commercial. It's not nice to mess with Mother Nature. Remember that one?
Yes.
I think that's the high level view of here. I don't know mechanistically if I can explain this. I just know that I've seen enough patients, men and women, with hormonal disruptions of their own native hormones, right? The ones they're supposed to have. And they act kooky and they act weird. And we have men with andropause and women with menopause. It's a real deal. Well, what if you give women an andropause and you give men a woman pause, and then you give them, it doesn't make any biological sense to do it. And I think this is maybe the extreme reaction to absolute hormonal dysfunction. That's the only way I can construct it.
Boy, and Doc, that's exactly where I was going to go. The left is so good at wordsmithing to the point where they can convince you that day is night, up is down, the sun rises in the west, sets in the east. They're so good at it, Doc, that they can call something the exact opposite of what it should be called and convince you of it. And then if you don't believe in it, gaslighting you and fear-mongering you to death after that. And so, Doc, we are talking about disorders here, right? Now, I don't mean that in a pejorative sense at all, just like I wouldn't mean it in a pejorative sense if I was talking about someone having schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or any one of another of mental distress maladies. These are things that people should get care for. Instead, the left views it as a life choice and says that it should be, quote, affirmed, gender affirming care. They use 2 words there, right, that really have nothing to do with what we're talking about here. And at some point, Randy, don't all these anecdotes of transgender people being full of all sorts of different hormones that their bodies aren't meant to have and dealing with all sorts of mental distress, taking out that rage on other people, eventually the anecdotes become a trend, don't they?
No, you're absolutely right, and you're right, because it becomes a matter of if you take a small incidence of an undesired consequence of an intervention, and you just increase the number of interventions, you're absolutely. That's just simple math, right? Even the new crazy math they try to teach in school is going to tell you, well, you're going to have more outbursts, you're going to have more reactions, you're going to have more tragic, just unbelievable consequences. And you're right. I mean, look, if someone comes in and I can show that they have a little plaque in their coronary arteries, I don't just immediately send them to the cardiothoracic surgeon for a 4-vessel bypass graft. We saw, well, hey, we got to make sure your blood pressure's controlled well. We got to make sure you're exercising well. We do a stress test, make sure that's safe. Let's counsel you about your diet and let's look at root causes. Let's take the low-level interventions and see if we can't modify the course of your malady. And you're right, this is a malady. It's a recognized psychiatric diagnosis, gender dysphoria, right? And it's just like giving the worst chemotherapy to someone that's got acne. I mean, you don't give ovarian cancer chemotherapy to a 14-year-old who's got acne. And it's so, I'm so embarrassed by my colleagues in the medical profession that have just been drawn, and I would think that most of them, if not all, probably belong to the left, who on the one hand claims that they're all about the science, and on the other hand are just totally blind to the science that would say, why do we treat this disease, which is nothing more than a disrupted neuronal function of the brain, just like you can have a disordered pull of your groin if you're a football player. It's just another system that's disordered. Why all of a sudden with this particular syndrome in this particular time, why are we jumping to the most aggressive, definitive, irreversible, and often harmful interventions? It doesn't square. So again, I think it probably reflects their worldview at some point that, we talk about it a lot. It's like, Tim, what are you talking about? If I believe that the sun, just because your compass says that north is north, mine says it's south, damn it. And that's the way it is. So my sun rises in the west. That's my truth, and you're not going to move me from it. And if you do, you're some knuckle-dragging MAGA fool, and I'm never going to talk to you again because you're just a worthless human being. I don't care if you're my sister, mother, or father, or dad, or brother. That's where we've come to in this country, right? Truth matters. There are no truths. There's no north and there's no south. There's no right or there's no wrong. There's no good, there's no evil. It's just how you feel about something, which always makes me question, and I get laughed off. So what's wrong? I want to look at these people and say, so if my 13-year-old is approached online by a very charming 50-year-old guy and wants to take her on a cruise to the Caribbean and just show her around the islands, for crying out loud, and buy her some poo-poo shells, or is it puka shells? Puka shells. What's wrong with that? She wants it. She wants it really bad, Tim. So what's wrong with that? That's her choice. Because, she's not feeling real good about herself. And she sees all these kids, these young girls, and they pump up their lips, and all these beautiful young women, and they're on the Facebook, and they got the extensions, and they look beautiful, and they put on, and that's the way she feels when she's with this guy. She met him at the coffee shop, after all. And that's her choice. That's her truth. And that's his truth. And so who's to say that's wrong? I want someone in the left to tell me that they have some objective standard by which that is wrong. And, of course, I've got my tongue in my cheek.
Dr. Tobler, I do believe, as you said, that for some of these people it is part of their worldview. But let's be honest here. How much of it has to do with money? I mean, I've seen reports that say the transgender industry, by the time we reach 2030, could be a $10 billion a year industry.
The predominant conversation in every medical staff meeting, every board meeting, at least at some point, medical staff meetings still talk about some medicine sometime. But there's always a report by the CFO, the CEO, whatever, about the performance of the institution. And I can tell you, with the current reimbursement rates for the core things that I was trained to do at my alma mater, WashU, before they became so darn woke, was always about how do we take the very best care of the patients? Because, you got reimbursed reasonably for taking really good care of patients. And doctors drove Lincoln Continentals, and they were happy, and they had nice houses, and patients were happy because they got served well, and everyone could afford it. But then you got the regulators, and you got the bureaucrats, and you got the compliance officers, and you got the congressmen and women who were going to pay for everyone's health care and make sure that the third parties were responsible because they were subcontracted, and we have to be. When all of this came in, the predominant conversation in most boardrooms, I can tell you that, and most executive offices in hospitals, even in large multi-specialty groups, even in single specialty, you know what? When they get together and they have tea, no longer do they talk about predominantly, hey, there's this new technology out. Should we pilot it? What do you think? Would this really serve our patients well? And can we make sure that we don't lose our shirts on it? Okay. And that's where it would stop. If it's going to cost us $10 million to put an implant in someone to help their pain, but we only get reimbursed $5 million, okay, we probably can't do that. But now that conversation dominates every discussion in every medical executive suite all day long. And so when that's the case, and reimbursements for the standard core things that 95% of people need 95% of the time, they are left because they're not getting paid for doing a lot of that core. And they start looking for what kind of things can we do that are not paid for by insurance, are paid for cash, we make a good margin, and we can be profitable. That's driving a lot of this. I mean, you saw that pirated, I think it was Matt Walsh from Welch from the Daily Wire. Remember that Vanderbilt study where they saw that gal, I think she was a doctor who was giving a speech to the rest of the medical people. They're talking about how lucrative the surgeries are. You're exactly right. Part of that I blame on what's become a real desert wasteland, especially in rural care and in indigent care, and the people who really need some of the most time-intensive care. You don't get paid. The reimbursement system in this country doesn't get paid for the heavy lifting of primary care. You get paid for doing procedures. Not that those shouldn't get paid well, because there's risk involved and there's skill involved, and that's it. But it's a long-winded way of saying you're right. It's a lot about the money. It's just a lot about the money.
Doc, you brought the passion today.
Well, in the practice model I'm doing, I fly with a bunch of people who have decided to take less money for what they do, but they're fulfilled. Their patients are happy. Their patients are doing better. Their patients don't land in the ER and the hospital as much. And it's really a back to the future kind of a practice of medicine. And then when I put a day in, like I do doing an outreach clinic now and then, today was one of those days, where I try to help a hospital out in rural Missouri, and I have to be concerned about the codes. What is that what's the code? I got to make sure the bill is right. I get so cynical about it because I know that that's what the doctors are doing, so that what's on their mind. Make sure that you got all the boxes checked on the note, and that's what they're thinking when they're visiting with you. And I heard from one person today that's a middle-level manager at the hospital, we have to hire more and more people to deal with the denials and the denials from the insurance company on the Medicare Advantage. It's a disaster. Well, who's paying for those people? Ultimately, we all are, either as taxpayers or as consumers of medical care. And it just simply doesn't have to be that way. That's what makes me mad. If there was no other choice, I'd go, well, that's the way it is. That life happens. It doesn't have to be that way.
That's Dr. Randy Tobler,
Sorry
host.
for the rant.
Oh, no, we love the rant. That's Dr. Randy Tobler, host of The Randy Tobler Show on News Talk STL, Saturday mornings from 6 to 9. And he's also the co-host of Wake Up Missouri weekdays on 93.9 The Eagle in Columbia, on X, Randy Tobler, MD, and bodyofhealth.com. Dr. Tobler, thank you as always for your time.
Thanks for letting me ramble. Have a good one.
Oh, thank you.
Great
All
stuff.
right, 5:46, Tim. One segment left, and
Amazing.
We're going to talk about where's my sheet here? Here it is. Obama on alien life on Earth. The former president had a thought on that. I'll share that next on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Watching the tide roll away.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, driving the leftist crazy all afternoon.
Look like nothing's gonna change. Everything seems to stay the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Boy, taste of spring on Wednesday. It will be warmer. It will be sunny. What a nice day. 56 in the morning. It's about 10 degrees above the normal high for the day. 73 and mostly sunny skies in the afternoon. The record is 74 from 1971. Thursday, still warm, 73, but anywhere from the late morning through the afternoon, let's be on guard for an isolated strong to severe storm. We've made it a First Alert weather day, as we'll be on guard for that. Colder air rushes in here Friday into the weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Great news from my sponsor, Tom Shaw Realtors, proving if you want to buy, sell homes, farms, acreage, you want Tom Shaw. In 2025, selling more than 100 properties, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com.
Hey, Jamie Allman here. When your car needs attention, trust who I trust. Benchmark Complete Auto in Valley Park. 25 years as a family-owned and operated company, Benchmark is your Napa Auto Care Center for nearly every maintenance and repair, using the latest technology and top-quality parts. Need help with the bill? Well, ask about Napa's Easy Pay financing. Mention Jamie Allman and News Talk STL and get 10% off. BenchmarkAutoRepair.com. BenchmarkAutoRepair.com.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go. And pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-515-2397. 800-515-2397. That's 800-515-2397.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Today, just after noon, we had a white Mercedes SUV park in the 100 block of Maryland Avenue. And then we had a person exit that vehicle with a shotgun and begin running towards the Capitol. This individual was challenged by United States Capitol police officers and ordered to drop the weapon, which he did comply with. He laid down the weapon and then laid down on the ground and was taken into custody by our United States Capitol police officers.
5:50 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show, and that is breaking news, Tim. Seems like the nuts never take a day off. Also sounds like this man decided not to do suicide by cop.
Yeah, it's man, I'll tell you what. It seems like the world's on either the world's on fire or we're just in the middle of a tempest of a 24/7 news cycle. Chris, I can't figure out day to day which one it really is. You know, it's like, was all this crazy crap going on before the internet and we just didn't know about it? News traveled slower, or is the world a nuttier place? It's hard to tell some days.
I always ask, are we in the full moon lunar cycle currently?
Right. Right.
Turns out this guy was 18 years old, had additional rounds, a tactical vest, a Kevlar, and a helmet as well.
Then why didn't he just give, I mean, I don't want anything to happen at the Capitol, of course, but I mean, why do you go through all of that and then just like, put your weapon down? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to look cool for the news cameras.
I guess so. I don't know. It's not a laughing matter.
Everybody wants their 30 seconds of fame, I guess.
Yeah. I guess you know what I think it is, Tim? I think he's 18. He probably doesn't watch a lot of news. Probably didn't realize that Congress is out of session this week.
Oh, so he didn't get as much, no pun intended here, and bang for his buck as he wanted, right?
Yeah,
so
strange. Let me ask you two, Joey and Tim, would you believe that there is intelligent life in our solar system or outside of our solar system? What's your thoughts on that, Joey?
Oh, of course. I mean, Burleson's getting down to the bottom of this, too. He knows about these UFOs.
Exactly. Tim, what do you think? Are we alone?
Chris, it's hard to. Okay, first of all, the vastness of the universe is so much bigger. Like every once in a while, I'll run across a story that tries to explain how big the galaxy is, and it's just hard to imagine it, right? So likewise, it's hard for me to believe that the good Lord put us as the only planet, with life. That's hard to. There's millions of stars, right? There's not another rock like ours anywhere in the universe that has life on it, but we may never find out, right? Because the closest one is probably millions of light years away. So
And then you ask the theological question of if there is life on other planets, why didn't, if you are a Bible believing Christian, why isn't that mentioned in the Bible that there's life outside of our solar system? And you read the Bible, it assumes that life is here on the earth and it's only here.
Yeah, and or are we that unique? Maybe. It's a heck of a question that'll tie you into knots, won't it?
Well, former President Obama, he said recently he saw, quote, no evidence during his presidency that aliens have contacted Earth, clarifying his recent headline-grabbing podcast appearance. Obama on Instagram yesterday said, quote, statistically, the universe is so vast that the odds are good that there's life out there, but the distances between solar systems are so great that the chances we've been visited by aliens is low. I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us. Really? You believe the president? And what about Area 51? There's people that said there's like bodies there, and people swear by that almost.
And remnants of spaceships and stuff. I mean, Obama should know, right? I mean, I'm sure presidents know much more than most of us common ducks with the things that they have access to during their 4 years or 8 years in office. But I don't know. I mean, they're always cagey when they have these interviews, though, aren't they? Like they're afraid to tell us too much that we might not be able to handle it.
We know that CBS is taking a more middle-of-the-road, maybe center-right stance. They have a new news editor, and they have fired the head of, or the person that does the CBS Evening News. A lot of people are upset that CBS is is not as left-leaning as it has been. I think a casualty of that, voluntarily, Tim, is Anderson Cooper. He said that he is departing CBS 60 Minutes in the fall. He says he will not renew his contract after nearly 2 decades. He said he wanted to focus on his CNN work and his family. I ain't buying it. I think he's seeing the handwriting on the wall, and CBS is getting a little too right for him. Plus, there was that mini controversy where the president of CBS News, can't think of her name, she squashed a story on President Trump temporarily because she said that she wanted to get the administration's point on this and delayed the story for a while. So do you think Anderson wants to spend more time with his family, or he just doesn't want to be around a bunch of right-wingers?
He doesn't want to be anywhere near the center-right side of the political world. I heard him. I rarely ever catch him, and I don't know. I guess I was surfing the other day, and I was like, let's hear what. It was one of these days where there was a lot of stuff going on in the news. I was like, I want to hear CNN's take on this. And man, Cooper, Chris, it's condescending. It's dripping with condescension. He just thinks we're a bunch of local yokel hillbilly Neanderthals on the center right side of the political spectrum. He Mr. Uber elitist up there in New York City or wherever he's based. And he can't stand any of us. It doesn't matter. So I think you're onto something.
We also know that Cuba is facing real economic hardship now. We've had the economic boycott against them for 60 years. But now, since the Venezuelan oil has been cut off, they're starting to really feel it now, Tim. Trash is piling up in Havana as the chokehold halts garbage trucks. Garbage has begun to pile up on street corners in the Cuban capital of Havana, attracting hordes of flies and reeking of rotten food in one of the most visible impacts of the U.S. bid to prevent oil from reaching the Caribbean's largest island. So the overthrow of the Cuban government is going to occur because there's trash piling up and people don't want to smell the stink.
Yeah, when you're on an island, you can only put it so many places, right? And, like our good friend Raul Mas has told us, the Cuban-American that we have on frequently, he's down there in Miami, and other friends of mine who have either been to Cuba or have relatives there or their parents escaped. It is a gem of the Caribbean. They say it is the most beautiful Caribbean island. It's got so much to offer. Chris, I mean, the people on that island could be happy days are here again if they would just embrace a little bit of Western civilization and turn their backs on the Castro commies. But I cannot believe how many decades that has not occurred. So maybe in our lifetime we will see the transformation. I hope so.
I'd like to visit Cuba because they've had the economic boycott against them. There are a whole bunch of 1950s era cars there. They make parts for those vehicles, but you go to Havana and you're like transported back to the 50s. So I would like to see that.
Like to see the place before they modernize it.
Exactly.
Sure.
All right, that's Tim Jones. He's there at the Capitol. He'll be back in studio with me tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Coming up next is Larry Connors USA. The story behind the story, the CIA's attempt to kill Castro. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Hey, Jamie Allman here for my favorite go-to store for seafood, gourmet goodness, and tons of wine. It's Stars, 1135 South Big Bend. A huge selection of seafood flown in from the coast. Lemon sole, halibut, Maryland lump crab, Gulf shrimp, and you gotta try the trout dip. Plus, imported and domestic hand-cut cheeses, lots of hand-picked wines at great prices, hard-to-find gourmet foods, and fresh roasted coffee using only the best quality beans. Stars, 1135 South Big Bend, just off of Highway 40.
The Herzog Tomorrow Foundation provides private school tuition scholarships through Missouri's new